Welcome to the Governor's Institute podcast for service members, veterans, and their families, or SMVF for short. I'm Mark Holliday, the SMVF Communications and Outreach Manager here at the Governor's Institute, and an Army veteran myself. I'm glad you're tuning in. This podcast is all about connecting our military community and their families to the service, support, and benefits they've earned. Through real conversations and expert insights, we'll explore practical tools and inspiring stories to help you navigate life during and after service. In today's episode, we're bringing you a powerful conversation recorded live at the North Carolina SMVF Network Summit in Raleigh. This panel dives into collaborative approaches to supporting SMVF populations and highlights the power of partnership across systems, agencies, and communities. Whether you're active duty, transitioning, a veteran, or a family member, we hope this episode leaves you informed, encouraged, and equipped. Let's get started.
So now it is my pleasure to introduce our first panel, the collaborative approaches to supporting service members, veterans, and their families. This discussion is going to support and discuss best practices in mental health treatment, strengthening family support systems, and addressing key challenges faced by the SMVF community. I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, John Camp, the president of Campsite Communications and former anchor and reporter of ABC 11 News. John, the floor is yours.
The floor is mine. Wow, that's great. That is, I won't even need it.
You echo.
News guy. Where are my panelists? Let me get my panelists up here. You don't need to hand the mic over to me. We need to hand the mic over to them. Let's get you guys up here. You know, I tell you, I have had the good privilege of working with the Governor's Institute and the GWG now hi, how are you? For many years. What has it been, 5, 6, 7 years almost maybe? Telling stories on behalf of the organization and the people in it, listening to the stories that impact veterans in North Carolina. I was at ABC 11 for 10 years. I was roaming around the country as a reporter for 10 years before that. The entire time, veteran issues were on my plate. I did not serve. To those in this room that did, thank you so, so much. But I have been listening. I've been thinking about this stuff for a long time. So today I get to take some of that information rattling around in my dome and apply it to this conversation and get to listen to the folks who know what they're talking about at a much, much deeper level. So let me introduce these folks and then we'll take it from there. Paul Berry, let's start with you. If you don't know Paul, you don't belong in this room. But I'll let you take it away and say a few things. Paul served, you were a Marine, right? 30. Still am. You still are a Marine for 30 years. You've been at NC Serves for longer than that. It feels like it. We may have to turn these things off. I'll kind of do that.
Yeah, okay. If you don't know me, probably shame on you, but I'm Paul Berry with Veterans Bridge Home, served in the Marine Corps for 30 years. I'm just excited to be here today. This work's hard, and anytime, you're grinding away in this remote work, you're at home, and you're on Zoom, and you're on Teams, every once in a while you get to come to something like this. This is going to be a good day. Thanks.
Martin Woodard is up at Veterans Life Center. I had the good fortune of working with Martin years ago as that group was opening its doors, as the home was opening its doors and telling their story in the very, very beginning. And Martin has just taken it and run with it ever since. So
sure. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Martin, and I have the honor of working at the Veterans Life Center. This is the part where I don't like to make introductions, so it's going to be short. I served in the military where I created, led, and designed behavioral health programs. After that, I went to work for Wake County Human Services, and then after that I went to work with Flo at the division, which was very eye-opening, very challenging, and also very fun. Flo, you have inspired and continue to inspire those of us around the state. From there, I had the opportunity to be part of the design for the Veterans Life Center, and this is where I'm currently at, and I love it every day. Our founder is in the back, John Turner. So if you have any questions or you want to be challenged, see John.
Sergeant Madeline Horner with Raleigh Police Department. One thing I'll just say quickly, I love this group of panelists. We have such a talented group of folks from so many spreads of life, so many walks here, and so we're gonna see a lot of different perspectives in this conversation. Sergeant Horner, take it away. You were with the Acorns Department, if you might have seen the Acorns truck outside as you were coming in, the RPD Acorns truck. But tell us what that is and tell us why you're here today and how you intersect with veterans.
Hi, good morning. I'm Maddie Horner. I'm the sergeant of the Raleigh Police Department Acorns Unit. We are the police department's street outreach team where we seek to connect people who are living with homelessness, mental health concerns, and substance use issues to local service providers in the area. More recently, we have made a dedicated effort to recognize the veterans who suffer with those things and bring the services directly to them in the field versus having to have them go to where the services are at, which is the nature of that van, where we have VA's social workers who will come with us to where the veterans are at so that we can get them enrolled and better access to their benefits.
And then Shannon Battle is a licensed clinical addiction specialist down in Fayetteville. Very excited to have you with us, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you intersect with veterans.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am Shannon Battle. I am a native of Fayetteville. It was Fort Bragg when I was born at Womack. I am the president and clinical director of Family Services of America. I have served our community for this year will be 25 years in the mental health field. I am the great-granddaughter of a veteran. I am the daughter of a veteran, and I am the wife of a veteran of 30 years. And we proudly serve in the services of mental health. We do child placement for foster care. We also have a contract with Cumberland County Schools to do in-school behavioral therapy. So we have therapists in over 21 schools in Cumberland County. And we just contracted in Charlotte to do emergency placement services for children needing emergency shelter services in Mecklenburg County, and we do outpatient therapy services specializing in trauma services. So if y'all are ever in Fayetteville, just come by and say, hey.
That's fabulous. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. We're gonna have a great conversation today. I have heard it said that the best way to get somewhere new is to know where you are currently. And so we're going to start today's conversation with the state of play in North Carolina. That's what I refer to it as. It's the boots on the ground experience of veterans in North Carolina, just so we can understand and have a kind of a common understanding of where we are and what that looks like, at least from your perspectives. Housing is something that has always touched me and been interesting to me. So Martin, I'd like to start with you if we could, understanding the state of play regarding housing in North Carolina. I know you've talked about filling the gap, but you can take that where you will. And then I'd also like to just encourage the other panelists. I'd rather have this be a free-flowing conversation. So if you have things to say, please, I'll try to direct where I can, but jump on in as you see fit. But Martin, take it away. Housing.
Sure. Housing is a critical issue, as everybody knows, for a lot of people. When we talk about veterans, the one group of veterans that is severely being impacted currently are the senior citizens. And one reason senior citizens are being impacted is because a lot of the landlords who have allowed them to stay in their properties for years have realized I can either kick this person out and double or triple the rent, or I can sell the property and I can go live somewhere else. And so as a result of that, these individuals are really at a disadvantage. But when we talk about housing, one thing I believe it's important to know is that if you feel good because you got a veteran housed, then that's it. I want you to think again. And what I mean is that if the situation arises that a veteran says, hey, I need a place to stay, I'm getting evicted, for example, and then you find that veteran a place to stay and you don't ask the tough questions such as, why are you getting evicted? What's going on? And, well, I don't want to get into business. You need to. And the reason for that is because of the fact of, guess what? If they were evicted once and nothing changed, well, you know the old saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes. The individual should be referred for some counseling to, once again, better regulate their finances. But the other side of that is to deal with the reality that when that placement you found them ends, if they haven't improved their credit score, nobody is going to allow them to get into their property. And it's just a reality. So when we talk about housing, I just want to say that it is more than just finding a veteran a place to stay. There are a lot of other issues that are going on with that veteran. I don't care how they present. The issue of mental health is something that's real that needs to be at least addressed and talked to, and recommended that if the person is struggling, which they probably are, that you make the referral to get them the care that they need. Because thinking that services are myopic in nature and what we do, it doesn't work, folks.
Shannon, I wonder if I could bring you in, because Martin mentioned mental health. It was a great segue to get over to you. And I wonder if you could talk about the state of play with regard to healthcare, mental health. It's a big ask. Can you kind of tiptoe into these waters for us?
Yeah, I'll do what I can in 2 minutes. But what Martin was saying with housing, that's very paramount. Everyone that's sitting in a seat right now, there is something you can do to impact change in that area. We look at ourselves and we're like, okay, how does that, what can we really do? But if you have properties, if you have doors, what we call, then maybe contact some of the companies that do have contracts with the state for transitional care, and offer up your property for individuals who are in need of transitional services. And the reason why I say transitional, because in our world in mental health, that's where they'll get the collaborative care of services. So they're just not getting housed. They have a case manager there that's going to help them with budgeting. They're going to have someone there that's just going to help them with just daily living. So if you're ever looking at, okay, how else can I, sitting here, make impact? Start looking in your communities. Look at distressed areas to see, possibly if there are these areas that you can renovate and offer, become a landlord. Like he was saying, the prices of rent have gone up substantially. And I know that as a contractor, because I'm a GC as well, and we build neighborhoods. And so when we were doing it with the aspect of, okay, well, we're going to just do low to moderate income, then we saw the need of, okay, we need to do more and offer a certain percentage of our homes to address those who just don't economically have the finances to be able to have suitable housing in safe neighborhoods, but they deserve to be in those communities. But for our other areas, when we look at social determinants of health, it's like 12. I don't know all 12 off the top of my head, but the areas that I know that our state are focusing on are transportation. They're looking at food and insecurities. They're looking at housing instability. So when you start looking at individuals, there's an assumption that every veteran that we see has a check coming in. Oh, they got money. So we have this idea. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if we saw a movie and it stuck in our head, but there are people out here who really need help. And the thing is, what do we do as individuals who are connected to these people? Because if we look at the reality of it, if you've ever walked into an office, how long did you have to wait to see your practitioner? How long did you have to wait to see someone before you actually got help? Then don't go in there in crisis and you're waiting. That's tough. So if you're imagining all of those impacts that are hitting our veterans that are coming into service, and then I have family members that are just they're clueless. They don't know how to help. And so when we're looking at, okay, well, how do you help someone who's had these ongoing issues? That's why you really need to tap into your local resources. It doesn't matter where you live in North Carolina. North Carolina has pushed out some initiatives where they're getting more boots on the ground involved, and there is not a place as a local provider. If you call me, you need to hold me accountable, and you need to say, look, where do I need to go for help? If you're not it, what is the next step so people don't get railroaded around? So those are the areas right now that our state are focusing on.
I would love to hear Sergeant Horner weigh in on this as well. Do you want to talk about housing quickly?
Absolutely, I would love to. Yeah. How you make it work. There's sort of a confusion in the community about housing first as the preeminent model for solving homelessness and addressing these issues. But I wholeheartedly disagree. It needs to be a housing and model so that you're addressing all of the needs of the person, and recognizing it took them a long time to get where they are. It's going to take a long time to get them back out. And if you look at the culture in which the veterans have come from, it's a very team-oriented culture. They have battle buddies. They have sergeants and supervisors who look out for them and help to guide and make some of those critical decisions. So if you've taken somebody who's been indoctrinated in that environment and you put them out in the world on their own and say, you figure it out, that's dog don't hunt. You're not going to get it there. So you have to have strong advocates who understand the systems and the rules that can help them and be their battle buddy moving forward to getting them to the better life.
And in Raleigh, what is the state of play for veterans regarding homelessness, transitional housing in the capital city, at least from your perch?
So Raleigh is very interesting because it is very focused on integrated responses. So we have a facility here called Oak City Cares, which is like a one-stop shop for people who are unsheltered to get access to basic life needs. They have meal services on weekends. They have showers, laundry services all during the week. But they also have people from the VA who come in and hold regular hours to get people connected to services. They have people from Alliance Mental Health Care there who do mental health treatment services. They have people from Advance Health to do medical services. So it's bringing all the services to where the people are and making it easy to access, in addition to the case management that goes along with that. So Oak City Cares also hires case managers to help walk through and make sure that everything is being navigated appropriately. And that is what makes Raleigh very special, that all of the service providers in the Wake COC are trying to work together to do collaborative case conferencing for the veterans in the area.
You know, that makes me think of one of the, Paul, I'm going to toss the ball over to you, because it makes me think of one of the large scale problems that I think impacts all of these conversations. That is siloed information and the importance of working our way around that information. I love Oak City Cares because it breaks down all of those walls. It just puts, I mean, you can do that because it's on a micro level, but at the same time, it breaks down all of those walls and puts everybody in the right same place. No silos. Paul, I guess we can't do this on a state level, but how do we get there?
Yeah, the silos, they exist, and we all know they exist, and a lot of that's because of funding. The way funding goes into housing programs, federal funding, state funding, local funding. I would say the best way to address the silos is the people that are already in this room. I mean, this is why this was created, was because people like Dr. Cudler, Flo, I see you sitting there in the middle, you saw that need to say we need to talk across efforts. We know housing first, but I couldn't agree more with the sergeant over there. Like, if you just, and I can think back when I started this nonprofit work about 8 years ago, we would celebrate, hey, we got a veteran house. We work with Volunteers of America or whatever. And shame on me, I didn't quite understand what the collective impact model was and this whole model. And then we would see the veteran back in 12 to 15 months. It's like, I recognize that name. And it's because it was being done in a silo. It wasn't being done using the community. So when the community gets together, and I'll use an example, it's kind of like here in Raleigh, Brooke Dickhart over there from the Joel Fund has the Greater Triangle Veterans Military Family Alliance. I got that right. They get together monthly and they talk about things like housing and social enrichment and access to health care and benefits. And what it does is it brings community partners together. And John, what it does is it just takes those silos down, because then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Their transportation is a barrier to housing. That job, we can get them a job, but if they can't get to the job, it doesn't matter. So I just seen a lot of growth in the last, I would say 5 or 6 years, and particularly going into COVID and coming out, where North Carolina particularly really wants to collaborate across these lines of effort. But we certainly have a lot more work to do with that. And I think a lot of it, it's the funding streams. They kind of cross over each other. And I think there's ways to streamline what we can do. But this group is a good start.
I was just going to say, let's get on this.
Yeah, one thing about veterans I think that's important to understand is where veterans cluster. And this is just my analysis of where veterans cluster. There are veterans that want nothing to do with military bases anymore. They don't want to hear the planes fly. They don't want to hear, all these things that are common on military bases. And they tend to cluster to cities. So when we talk about the area where we're in right now, the greater Raleigh, Wake County area, this is where the majority of the veterans live. And then we talk about where are they next? Well, Charlotte, Mecklenburg. A lot of veterans are there. Once again, very similar. But then we do have veterans that they really they have an affinity for being near a military base, being around that culture, which I think is great. But at the same time, where they tend to cluster is down in your area, the Fayetteville area. And then we have those who don't want to have nothing to do with anybody. They go out west. And so they're up in the mountains. They're like, leave me alone. Everything might not be okay, but in the mountains, we take care of our own, and we got this. And so that's where the majority of the veterans are. But the thing that we're seeing, this change in the landscape here, is we're having a lot of migration from other states, that people are coming into our state. And it is really it's taxing on the resources that are there. We're fortunate here in Wake County. We are service rich. However, with the people that are coming here, what we're also seeing is, in terms of, if we talk about the VA, they're not moving more services from these states that these veterans are leaving from. And that, of course, is going to cause a strain on the existing services that the VA has, in terms of when we talk about everything from housing to having access to services. So once again, this is just my unofficial looking at the numbers where us veterans tend to cluster.
Sergeant?
And I think it goes right back toward individualizing care for each person. Everybody has a different thing that they have prioritized, and recognizing what it is that they're looking for and what they really need versus what I think you need, and giving them some ownership and respect and autonomy over their own journey towards betterment. That's really, really important part of creating the whole person.
Spot on. And I know, Shannon, we've talked a little bit about silos and kind of moving past that gatekeeping. Do you want to riff on that for a minute?
Yes, absolutely. So what I see a lot of in the private sector is when I have a veteran who's transitioned out of the military and now he's facing family. He's already took care of country. Now he has to take care of family. And for some, this is a really big challenge. And if we look at some of the numbers, they're increasing in the areas of toxic stress within families. So these now children are carrying these stressors to school, and then now they're having behavioral problems. The marriage is strained, and then we're just having a lot of chaos in the home. Most of the children that I serve and their families are military affiliated experience a high level of toxic stress. Their house is not quiet, and so a lot of them just shut off, go to their rooms, or if they come together collectively, they're arguing about things. So where does that, put us in terms of when we're looking at how do we just not do this part without treating the whole part? So that's where I come in advocating when you come in my door, and I hate to use the word aggressive, but that's where we are, because it's very paramount, because they never see you again. If you say that your support is your wife, can we get your wife on the phone? Because she's going to go on an individualized plan, but does she know she's a part of your plan? So we have to be more intentional about how we advocate and actually hold our veterans and families accountable to the whole part of the person receiving care.
That's wonderful. And I want to get into healthcare. I went there too early before. Now I'm ready. I'm ready now. One of the things I know is tough, and I want everyone to sort of just take healthcare, mental health care. We can talk about suicide now or soon, but I want you to take it where you will. One of the things I think I wanted to start with, though, is just this concept that when it comes to healthcare, it can be very difficult to get veterans to offer up that they are veterans. It can be hard. I know we've talked about how to get them to either volunteer that information or to have medical providers or service providers ask the question, are you a veteran? I wonder if you could also kind of weave into your answers any thoughts on how to get veterans talking about their service, their status as a veteran, so that they can access the services that are available to veterans. So take it where you will, but healthcare, talking about veteran status, all that stuff.
I'll go. Yeah, you'd think I was going to talk about the Ask the Question campaign. I'll get to that. What I want to talk about is social isolation, depression, and loneliness, because that's a real thing. Just as she said, when they're in, you have structure. My God, I did 30 years in the Marine Corps. You couldn't talk about structure. And when you get out, you're isolated, and you lose your purpose, you lose access, and the next thing you know, you're depressed, undiagnosed. And you have post-traumatic stress, military sexual trauma, TBIs, you throw all that in there, and then these veterans are sitting around feeling that they're totally cut off and isolated, and they lose hope. So what I am a big advocate for is social enrichment. Everybody likes to do something, and again, I will mention, there's monthly coffees in and around the Wake County, Raleigh area, hosted by the Joel Fund. There's other events and coffees that allow those veterans to make connections. And it might not be for everybody, but if they can get connected, John, they're more likely, like if they met somebody, say they go to the, 6 of the 12 coffees a year and they got a couple of business cards and they met a few people, they're more likely to reach out for help sooner, not when they're in crisis, not when you got to, respond with the unit. Now, thank God for the work you do, but I would rather them just be like, I haven't been myself lately. I'm not sure what's going on right here. I don't know who to talk to, but I met somebody at this coffee from the VA. I met Paul Berry, I met Martin, somebody, and then they're going to guide you to those services sooner.
Yeah, thanks. Martin, I know you're seeing this up at Veterans Life Center on a daily basis, right? You're seeing all of this. Talk about that and state of play it for us.
Sure. When we talk about healthcare, the best type of healthcare besides quality is access. And if we're truly honest here, when we talk about access, you're not going to get quick access through the VA. You're not going to get very, very fast access through waiting in line for somebody to provide you charity care. And so one thing that we strive to do at the Veterans Life Centers, we want people, as they're living and working on a variety of issues that they have to address, is for them to get employed by an employer that's going to provide health insurance. Because if there's health insurance, then they have choices, they have options. Yes. And so the VA is okay. I'm not here to bash any system, but what I am here to say is that time is money. And when you're working, especially when you're reestablishing yourself as a veteran, the last thing you want to say to your employer is, well, I'm not feeling good today. And you can't get access. And then the next day, I can't make it. This is a right to work state, and we know what that means. It's easy to say, well, tell you what, don't come in tomorrow. So what we strive to do at the Veterans Life Center is for individuals to, once again, get their VA benefits, and if they don't have VA benefits, because once again, something you mentioned, not all veterans have benefits. And so if that is the case right now, I believe we're fortunate is that we have the option of Medicaid. And so get registered for Medicaid, but don't stop there. Get into some type of employment that offers you health care benefits, because then now you have a choice. You can go to the VA for some things, but when we talk about access, ease of access, you have private insurance. And I mean, we could bash that too, but once again, if we're talking access and we're talking quality, because it's not just health care, it's also behavioral health care that the individual would have access to, that just has a different feeling to it than those other services that I mentioned.
Aha. And then I lost my train of thought. Gone. Completely gone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, let's. We're talking healthcare.
Okay.
Yep.
I found it. So I want to sort of parallel this with the law enforcement culture, because we deal with a very similar stigma about mental health and this. And I think what is required is the preventative part and the ultimate cultural shift that comes from the top down of it's okay not to be okay, but more than that, we want to teach you in boot camp coping skills. And we want to normalize this across our ultimate culture. Like, I have a pipe dream of putting mental health coping skills classes in elementary schools so that we're teaching children and indoctrinating them very early with how do I deal with these bad feelings and how do I deal with it in a healthy way versus an unhealthy way. And then that will translate up. So if we can do that in our military professions and our police professions, it will also change. And in the police culture, we have seen the benefits of that, where we've started indoctrinating the recruits with, we want you to go talk to the police psychologist, and we want you to have these things. And after you've had a critical incident, we're going to do a critical incident stress debriefing team and then provide you peer support access after it. We're building it into the system, and all of our leadership is saying, yes, we want you to have this, we want you to utilize it, and if you don't utilize it, we're going to view you as irresponsible. Taking care of yourself and your mental health care is so important that if you neglect it, that's actually the problem. It's not a matter of pride anymore. Now, you're flipping it on them.
Setting a new SOP.
Yes.
Making an entirely new operating procedure. Shannon, I wonder if you could take this into, I don't know, can we get to suicide? Is that, because we're talking about mental health. You are a clinical psychiatrist? Did I get that? What did I say right? Mental health counselor. But take it where you will. But if it's time to talk about that, I want to get there. Suicide's very personal to me.
So I volunteer with this company called Give an Hour. If you all haven't heard of them, Give an Hour is an organization where anyone who, you can know someone that's in the military that you're close to. And they have clinicians throughout the world that can provide pro bono services for you. So one of the things that I do with them as well is sometimes just provide information to the active duty reservists. And I'm talking about suicide. The best thing that we all can do in here is check in on each other. Most time when people die of suicide, you don't know that it was going that direction. Some people mask for years very well, and oftentimes they're not just waking up, today's just going to be the day I'm just going to do this. It's just a gradual thing that just happens over time, and then it happens, and then the family members are like, well, we never knew. But isn't it amazing how you can work with a coworker and learn 3 months later that they lost their mother or a close loved one, and you work right next to them, never knew that they had that significant loss? Why is that? So that is happening. So what we do is there are these charts that we have. You can go on Give an Hour and you can download them. They have the different faces, and it gives you the questions to ask. It teaches you how to observe. We have to pay attention to what's going on around us. People, if you know you work with a very energetic coworker, and then they come to work and then they just seem off, it's okay to ask, Joe, what happened to you today? What's going on? I noticed you're not, at level 8 today. You at level 3. And then Joe will look at you and be like, oh, I'm good. The next thing you do is help them to scale. You say, okay, from a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being very stressed, 10 being very stressed, 1, I'm good. Where are you? So now Joe has to do what? He has to slow down, he has to orient, and he has to think. So he can't just fly off at you. So these are things that I think we just have to take responsibility for, because we want to be able to say, if you go to that program, if you sign up for that service, oh, you're going to be fine. But that's not the world that we live in. If we knew the answers, I don't think any of us would be sitting in here today. But I think the answer is in each one of you, and we just have to learn how to stop looking at what's going on in our four walls of business and our four walls of home, and look at how do we be an extension to the person that's next to us.
Can we just, right on, can we clap for that, clap for that. Yeah, what she said. Martin.
One thing back to ask the question, I think we have to recognize someone in the room, Jeff Smith. He, many, many years ago, made it his life purpose to get people to embrace asking the question. And it is so important, but then the question is, how do you ask the question? And so my response to that, I think it has to be a multi-pronged approach. I think there needs to be marketingness behind it. For example, something as simple as putting a poster in an exam room. We've all been in exam rooms where we move from the lobby to the exam room. Yes, we're closer to seeing the practitioner, but it's going to take some time. So if you just had a simple poster on the wall that just said, are you a veteran, and then list some of the benefits to it, there's a good chance that veteran's going to read that, because what else are they going to do in there besides look at their phone? I mean, sure, we all know they also have the sign on the wall, don't use your cell phone, but I'm sure most of us do. So that is just, it needs to be a multi-pronged approach, because there's a lot of people that really and truly don't consider themselves veterans, in particular female veterans. It was interesting when I first got into doing this work in the veteran space, I was shocked at the amount of females who did not consider themselves veterans. And I would ask them the question of, why do you not feel you're a veteran? Well, I only served 4 years, or I never saw combat, or I got out after 2 years because I married another service member. I had a child, and we had to decide, who was going to be the one that took the lead for the child. So I'm like, you made a sacrifice. Whether it was 2 years or 24 years you served, you are a veteran. And so that's one thing I believe that we really need to also continue to work on, is the fact that there are a lot of women who had a better service record than some of us men. And they need to be recognized, because the fact is they wore the uniform, and they, just as well as everybody else, is due to the benefits and the perks of having raised their hand and say, I will.
That's fabulous. Did you have something you wanted to mention on this as well?
Yeah, I want to just kind of give an update. I mentioned Jeff Smith's here and all the great work Jeff did with the Ask the Question campaign and a few others. We're in the process of refreshing that and getting it back out again, and it's exciting, and we're doing that through the group from the North Carolina Governor's Challenge. I'm a co-lead for that. Karen, raise your hand over there, from the Cohen Clinic. She's the other co-lead, but we also have Mayor's Challenge folks in Charlotte, and some other folks, Kay Reen from Department of Health and Human Services, and a few others, Andrea Allard. We have a small committee, and we're in the process of updating that as we speak. But to Martin's point, we want to get the printed materials out. We want to get the materials out, but we also want to educate and inform not just veterans, but the greater society about veterans, because what they will learn applies to everybody. Sometimes it's not your veteran coworker, it's just your coworker. To your point over there, is just like, he's not himself all week. Like, what's going on? So you're going to see that, and we're going to really push. I have a goal. If I could get Governor Stein to sign a proclamation to say that the state of North Carolina will adopt the Ask the Question campaign. It'll be in every state agency office. It'll be on every website, and then a lot of counties will fall in line. It is that simple. It is not hard to do. Through a stroke of a pen and about $10,000 worth of printing, we can make a difference with this, but the community has to be educated. So I encourage folks, take training. Mental health first aid, QPR, CALM, ASSIST, SAVE. You hear all these acronyms? Be curious. Stop at some of these vendor tables back there, and they will talk to you about it, because I have been there, and some of you have been there too, when it's like, hey, are you feeling good today? No. You thinking about harming yourself? Yes. When there's the yes, you better know what to do, and you shouldn't feel scared. You should feel empowered to say, okay, my buddy's not doing right, but I got you. I got you today, and I know where to get you those services. So thanks, John.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks to everybody. I actually was lucky enough to tell a story about mental health first aid training. Went to a couple different training courses, spent a few days doing that, and it is fabulous. If anybody is up for that and can spend that time and invest that time doing that, it's a day-long training, but it is free and it is fabulous. It's worth it. It's worth looking into. One of the things that can put people in these places of self-harm is substance use disorder, what we used to call addiction, substance use disorder. I think it's worth talking about this, and as far as the state of play, as far as where we can get to, we got to kind of know where we are. Shannon, would that be your territory?
Yes, I'm a clinical addiction specialist. So one thing that I think that works well is helping people to really understand addiction on the basic level. And I know parents, y'all gonna look at me like, no, I will never send my child to her if that's what she says. But if your child is struggling with addiction, and I'm using this program called 7 Challenges as an evidence-based model, and we go through our workbook, the first thing I ask them is, what is the good thing about using drugs? What's the good stuff? And so I'm saying that to bring awareness to you all. People aren't just using drugs just to use them. There are some benefits to it. Now, there are consequences that go with that. So yes, let me reframe that. After we talk about the good stuff, we do go to, okay, well, what are the things that aren't working so well? So when we're looking at substance use, if you look at anyone that's struggling in addiction, they didn't wake up, they didn't go to high school and grow up as a child and say, I'm gonna be an addict one day. What they say now, life started lifing, and they just, found a way to be able to soothe pain. If they have physical pains that they're going through, then yeah, opioids is going to be very high, because if my back is hurting, I got to go to work to pay these bills to take care of my family. I can't worry about back pain. So what do I do to back pain? Pop some pills. So when we are looking at people who struggle in this area, I think that we should look with a different perspective and less of shaming, ridiculing, and attacking, but more of a, wow, I wonder how that person got there perspective.
That's terrific. Sergeant Horner, I saw you nodding along. Did you have something to say on this front? Suicide, I'm sorry, as far as substance use disorder?
No, I just emphatically agree.
Okay, good. Okay, so we've talked a lot about state of play. Let's move over, although we've talked a lot about solutions as well, but if we kind of shift the conversation and shift into kind of forward thinking as far as solutions, how can we make the world a better place? How can we serve our veterans better, the SMV community better? How can we do that? One place to start is with something that Martin talks a lot about, or we've talked about in the past, and that is a window of opportunity. When we do these things can be as important as what we do. But Martin, I want you to talk about that, and we can think about all of the solutions that we talk about in terms of a window of opportunity, I think.
When we talk about the window of opportunity, we want you to imagine truly that a window on a house that's open. The majority of people, when they will come to see us, meaning everybody in the room, they're having back problems. Somebody's on their back, something's going on, something's going wrong. Commonly we call that they're in a crisis. When someone is in a crisis, what's very, very important to do and not to do is the following one. If you're not the right agency to help them, let them know. No is not a bad word. No really means next opportunity. So what do you do then if you're not the right agency? Steer them to the right agency, but also let them know that if it doesn't work, to call you back. Because one thing that veterans really have a hard time with, and it's very understandable, is a couple of things. One is that there are some agencies out there that they see veterans as a human ATM machine. And what I mean by that, they do a lot of overpromise, but not enough deliver. The old overpromise and underdeliver is real when it comes to the veteran community. A lot of people will really get on stage and say, we serve veterans. Yeah, right. You talk to the people that have received their services. And we all have heard the horror stories over the years of such agencies. So what do you do if you're not the right agency? I strongly suggest is have people that you can call that can guide you if you don't know to where that veteran could go. Because once again, the worst thing to do is to look on the internet, and back in the old days, we used to have something we called a Rolodex that you put people's names on, and I loved them.
Some of us still have those.
Yeah, exactly. They served a purpose. But the danger with that is, especially nowadays as we move forward, we're in 2025, some of those agencies may be defunct, they're not there. Some of those individuals that were your go-to people may have retired. And so what I strongly suggest is that in this room, there's a collective of a lot of people here who have a lot of knowledge. Go to the tables, talk to the individuals, because there's a good chance they could wind up being some of your best go-to people. So what's my point? My point is this, is that there's no program that can be all things to all people. You just can't do it all. And if you believe you can, then I'm sorry, you need some medication. But the other side of it is that there are people out there that can probably solve the problem. And so have those resources, build that network. So therefore what you're able to do is to truly help, because the whole reality of when a veteran comes to you and they're in distress, they're also probably angry. They're also probably, in some cases, out of medication or need medication, and maybe even intoxicated and impaired. And so what they truly want is they want to be understood. And if they feel that you understand them and that you are really there to support them, you made a friend for life. You may never see them again, but I guarantee you they will talk about you, and it'll be in a positive way. But I also guarantee you if you screw them over, they're going to talk about you too, and it's not going to be in a positive way. So my point is just really and truly, if we're in this business to serve, serve.
Yeah, serve and well, trust. Let's get over to you, Paul, because I want to talk about the battle buddy system and kind of bringing that out of the military and into the civilian world as well. Finding people that you can trust and rely on to give you that credible advice to get you that next step. Take that where you will.
Yeah, while you're in and you're serving, even if you're a family member, the services, particularly, from 9/11 on, kind of adopted this battle buddy program, and it started overseas. Like if you're on a base in Iraq, you go nowhere alone. There's always at least two of you, and sometimes there's definitions of battle buddies and mentors. It's a little different, but having a battle buddy in the community really helps. And if you go to the Governor's Institute website, there's a lot on there about the battle buddy program, and we have partnered with Psych Armor, and we continue to work on that. Mecklenburg County has a great effort about the Battle Buddy program. I will say this, to have a true battle buddy is an honor. It's really hard to have a handful of true battle buddies that you can call at any time or text at any time and say, I'm not having a good time. Something just happened. And it's even more rare that you get somebody to say, can I call you? Can I come see you? Can we go get a cup of coffee? And figure out what that is. I think battle buddies need to feel empowered, and I think that's the education, that's the outreach also through things like the Ask the Question campaign is, what do I need to do to be a good battle buddy, John? It's more than just, hey, I'm your friend. It is knowing, as Martin's point, knowing that resources, and I think it starts with trust. So I want to hit on the trust piece. If I'm a veteran and I have all those issues going on that Martin just described, who am I going to trust? Who's the first person in my road to recovery or my road to out of homelessness? Who's that first person? And that's often a battle buddy, but it's also a lot of you in this room are the first one to touch a veteran. And we've all been there when it's kind of like you get a voicemail, you call veteran John Smith back. Hey, John, how's it going? It's not going good. And it goes downhill. That trust and rapport has to be built. I don't think the last thing you do is over-promising. It is, we'll get to the bottom of the situation, and I can't drive home enough about what Martin said. None of us need to be the subject matter expert on everything, but we need to know who those subject matter experts are to say, hey, I got your back. This is not in my lane, but I know who I can refer you to. And then sticking with them in that journey, though, to make sure that they get connected to that resource is so critical. So what happens is that veteran now trusts you. You have trusted partners. And when you refer that veteran, it's a transfer of trust. That's all this is across North Carolina, is the veteran's now trusting you. That doesn't mean you've made false promises like, oh, we're going to get $10,000 to pay off your house or anything crazy like that. It is you genuinely listen to them and you referred them to good community partners. That's what it's about.
Thanks, Paul. That's a great segue actually into this next conversation I want to have actually with Sergeant Horner, and that's about basic advocacy. Shake it up, baby. Is basic advocacy and the idea of holding on tight once you have found that person that you are there to support. Once you have found the person that is leaning on you. Holding on tight, as my veteran, holding on tight to that person. This is something we've talked about before, but maybe you can tease it out for folks.
Yes, and I love that because the trust and the relationship that is built as you're really helping somebody to rebuild themselves, it's a very intimate relationship. And you as the professional have to know how to make the offer and how to build the trust and how to take what is a very personal relationship, but also keep it on track, if that makes sense. So the trust is built over time, and it's built through little things. And it could be as simple as the phone call back in the first place. A veteran is not going to trust you right out of the gate, and you as the professional cannot take that personally. You have to be willing to do all the little steps and to build the trust over time. It's like sand in an hourglass. Every little grain rises towards the top, and then you get to the end. But you have to be willing to invest all of the time to do it, and you have to be willing to not just say, hey, let me refer you to this guy because I know that he can do it, but actually make the phone call while you're sitting there and show them that I am with you and demonstrate repeatedly that I'm going to be with you and I'm going to help you to do these things. And if I call that guy and he says that was the wrong guy, well, then I'm going to stay here with you as we try to figure out who the right guy is together. And understanding that everybody needs an advocate. Anybody who is a parent knows that, like, you're the advocate for your child when you take them to the doctor's office. And if you disagree with what the doctor said, you need to say, no, you come back in and you take a look again because I know that you're wrong. I know this child. You're doing the same thing for your veteran. I know this veteran. He was not ready before. He is ready now. You better make time because the window's going to close. And so being a strong advocate, knowing where they're at, what they need, and when you have the opportunity to strike, and being ready to do that, that's how you build the trust because they know that when you're ready to deliver, you will deliver.
It's fabulous. Panel's over, yeah. Drop. You can drop that mic if you'd like, yeah. You don't drop it, literally. You could break it, shake it. But actually, I think that's what's terrific is if we want to think about then scaling that up, Shannon, maybe we can pull you in to talk about the system of care collaborative, referrals, the idea that I know you can illuminate on this kind of idea.
So I'm a part of two system of care collaboratives. In my community in Fayetteville, there's one for Cumberland County. So wherever you're from, there is a system of care. So if you're in business, it doesn't matter if you're in a healthcare business. If you are in business and you are serving, helping others, you might want to just get involved. I think it's just like one meeting a month, and we do it by Zoom. You could do it. I'm also a part of Mecklenburg County System of Care Collaborative, and it's just people from all types of organizations, and then they come together, they do things and sponsor events for their community. Because the thing is, there are a lot of people in your community. Not everybody is coming knocking at your door. But when someone does come knock at your door, you want to be that one resource for that person to be able to say, I did the best I could. I really helped this individual. And sometimes, you might have capacity to follow up. I'm not saying get overwhelmed, but what I am challenging each one of you is to stretch your capacity. We really have got to do more in terms of what Mr. Rogers used to say, will you be my neighbor? And so it goes back, to the Battle Buddy system that they're creating. Will you be a neighbor? So when we're looking at, okay, we want to be able to refer people to different organizations, even if you all are very strong, you got it going on, and you're very stable in your lives and your careers, was there ever a time where you doubted yourself and you just felt like you were going to lose it? Did you need to go to an agency, or did you just need a neighbor? Did you just needed someone to say, it's going to be okay, or I'm right here with you? So I think that's just where we begin to really impact change, and we just be able to really impact the lives of others around us, because each one of you has something to offer. So anytime you wake up in the morning, first question other than, hey honey, if you with someone, how you doing today, or whatever, or thank you Lord, I'm up this morning, is who can I be a neighbor to today? So I challenge that to you all.
Accepted. I think we're going to have some time. I would love to leave time, a few minutes anyway, for questions. If you have some, so think on what. We'll get to you just about. What I'd love to do before we get to that moment is just run down this line of great panelists and great talkers, and think if you have any kind of closing thoughts. I know we talked about kind of putting a bow on it, and so if you want to do that, and then we can open the floor up to questions and maybe leave it at that. But for those of you in the audience, if you had kind of a vague idea of a question, go ahead and kind of put a period on that, or I guess a question mark on that, and we'll get to you in just a minute here. So Paul, do you want to start us off with kind of maybe putting a bow on this?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about something. You're not going to expect this coming from the Marine. Take care of yourself, okay? Seriously. I have finally learned, after about 38 years of serving or in a nonprofit, that it's important to take care of these veterans. However, you can't pour from an empty glass. You've heard that said 1,000 times. I truly believe that you need to recharge your batteries. It is okay to say no sometimes, to say that's not in my swim lane. I don't have to figure it out. I'm going to pass that football. I'm going to do a lateral over to another agency or another friend. And it's okay to step away once in a while and refresh. And what I highly encourage is, if your life permits it or your work, attend some training and some seminars and step away sometimes, because it's easy to get caught up in the daily grind. My goodness, I sit at home, I work remote, and you can really get caught up in it. And the next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock on a Thursday, and you're like, what in the world is going on? And you don't feel like you're productive. When you feel that way, it's okay to take a knee, as we would say in the Marine Corps, and say, I need to refresh. So if there's anything I could say is to this group, because I know most of you, let's take care of each other. Thank you.
Martin, take it away.
Okay. This might be a little controversial, especially for individuals who didn't wear the uniform, but as someone who did wear the uniform, I want to talk about the colloquial phrase of thank you for your service, okay? As a veteran, when you tell me, or when you say to me, hey, Martin, thank you for your service, it really doesn't do nothing for me, okay? And a lot of veterans, it doesn't. It's like, yeah. But I read something from General Colin Powell in one of his books on leadership. And for those who don't know General Colin Powell, I mean, he was the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was Secretary of State. Great man. But one thing he said in one of his books, he says, when a civilian tells someone who did wear the uniform, thank you for your service, add one sentence to it. And that sentence is, how may I serve you? If you add that, I just got to tell you, you're going to see veterans, not all times, but quite a few times, they're going to light up, and they're not going to be used to hearing that. And what that does for you is that gives you even more credibility as telling them in a truly from the heart way, I'm here to serve you. I care about you. And so that's just something that I would just like to share with you, is the thank you for your service is nice. But once again, as vets, we see that it's more so for you than for us. But if you add that sentence, add that little spice to it, then we got a soup that we all can eat.
Brother, I thanked you for your service the first day we met. You never told me. You said, man, go on, do more for me. I should have done better. Sergeant Horner, what can you do for us?
I would just like to say it can be very challenging what we do. And I don't like the word challenges. I'm re-trademarking it as innovative opportunities. Build a better mousetrap. So every time you hit a hurdle, just tell for yourself, like, hey, oh no, I got something for you. I'm gonna be right back. And take on the opportunity to really fight and build a better mousetrap and change the world. Make it work for you, and feel empowered to be able to do that.
I love that. Shannon? Shake it up.
I know, right? North Carolina. Okay, so I will leave with 2 words, competence and vulnerability. This is what competence looks like. Everybody turn to a neighbor real quick and say, I am the answer to your problem.
The answer to your, that's a tough thing to say.
Okay, that's competence, right?
I can't say that.
Now, let's do vulnerability. You are the answer to my problem. That's confidence and vulnerability.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Do we have time for questions or no? Yes, a couple questions. And who was the gentleman back there who had his hand up? If you've got a booming voice, sir, you're welcome to shout it out. If not, I can run this microphone back and get to you.
Can everybody hear me? All right, the question to the panel is this. The All Rise Conference has something called mentor training, and you talked about the battle buddy. What's the difference between the mentor training? I'm from Fayetteville with veterans, I assist veterans for it, and we have mentors that meet them where they're at, try to get the resources that they need. Is there a difference between the battle buddy, because they are mentors that serve them, that serve as well? Is there a difference between them, the mentor, as well as the battle buddy? Is there a difference between that? That way I can go back and let them know there is a difference between this 5 hour training or whatever necessary.
Yeah, is your comment specific about the Veterans Treatment Court mentors? I would say those are like Battle Buddy professionalized, like, Battle Buddy second award or something. Because I'm kind of familiar with the mentors with the Veterans Treatment Courts. I would think that's what you would want folks to get to, but the Battle Buddy is a little bit more basic than a mentor at a Veterans Treatment Court. Good question.
If folks, I will say quickly, veteran treatment courts are one of the neatest things that North Carolina has to offer. If you don't know, if you're not really intimately understanding what those are, take it upon yourselves to look into that and advocate for them. We need more of them. We need much more funding for them, and they do amazing things for vets who have kind of fallen into the wrong space. Any other questions? Questions up? Yes, ma'am.
I can use the good mom voice.
We've got a mic coming to you if you'd rather.
Hello, I'm Jeanette with the Hidden Heroes Community Elizabeth Dole Foundation. I wanted to bring the point, and then I'll ask a question. We have 14.3 million caregivers that are veteran and military caregivers, and 43% of us are under the age of 60 and have had some form of suicide ideation. 20% of those have actually thought about taking their lives. And I appreciate that you guys have all brought up families, but how much are we focusing on the caregiver when they come in with their veteran?
It's a wonderful question. I want to yield to whomever wants to field it.
Well, for us, we deal with every now and then a mother or a father who will call up and they will be estranged of what's going on with their son or daughter. And how we deal with them is first off, we listen. And then after we listen, the real question for us is, are we the right place? Because that gets back into that don't overpromise and underserve and go into the whole, I understand, I feel your pain. No, you don't. No, you don't. But at the same time, it's a long process. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is when that situation happens where a family member, they're pretty much overwhelmed when they call us. And when they do, it's the idea, be patient. The longest I've worked with someone in that situation was almost a year. their son got out of prison. Their son went through our program, and they did pretty good. We have others now that are in, that once again, it's the mother or father who will call as really the caregiver, because they're taking care of the children a lot of times. They're also possibly supporting the distraught wife or girlfriend that is overwhelmed because of the fact she's like, I am really not getting any help here. Can you help? So it's more than just one person. It involves at least, I'd say, 3 people. So what I would say is to be patient, be respectful from the standpoint that if you're not the right place, refer them to the right place. It's nice to see federally that they are extending more money and services in the VA realm for caregivers, which were neglected for a long time. I mean, to be a caregiver, you give up a lot. You really do. And
Shannon, did you want to jump in?
And I just want to say there's this other constraint that we have called HIPAA. So you want to make sure when there is treatment involved that the caregiver, if this person is not the legal guardian, that they are identified as someone that can be shared information with regarding that particular person, because you can call, you can express those concerns, but if there's no documentation where they can talk to you, they're not going to be able to talk to you. And unfortunately, sometimes you will have where the veteran is getting treatment and they haven't signed documentation, and then they put in their treatment plan that the caregiver or all their supports, but they didn't sign documentation to say that, yes, you can talk to them about my treatment. And so now you have this veteran who's getting treatment, they're becoming pervasively worse, and there's nothing that you can really do because you can't violate HIPAA. So just make sure that those documents are signed when that person is, starting care.
I think one of the most underserved populations are caregivers because it's ill-defined. It is not clear to me even, and I've been doing this for a long time, is it's not always a blood relative that's the caregiver. It's the family friend down the road who comes over on Saturdays and helps with the lawn work and helps with the sort through the medication and sort through the bills. I would just say this. All of us should be a call to action through things like the Ask the Question campaign is that caregivers need advocates too. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Some other questions. There were maybe a hand or two in the back over here. And I think we do have just a few more minutes. And so this is today, I think the goal of today is to have about as lively of a conversation in every possible realm you can. So if you've got questions, bring them on. No need to be shy. Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay? Nicole Jenkins, I'm with the Jones County Veteran Service Office. My question is, how do you get all of these resources and services to rural populations? So a lot of the resources that you have in the big cities, the metropolitan areas, those are not available to the rural populations, and albeit that there's not as many veterans that need the services, there are still veterans that need the services. So oftentimes, when we look for the services that we need, the resources are, the offices may be there or in the surrounding counties, but the representatives don't make it to us. They're not as apt to come to the county, and then when we reach out to those offices, they either don't service our area, or they don't have the representative or the availability to service our area, because we just don't have, the funding doesn't come to our area because our population numbers are small. So often it's about the funding, it's about the budget, it's about the numbers. So how do you reach the rural populations?
I know from the mental health perspective, wherever your catchment area is, so your managed care organization, that's who you need to use as your first resource. You said what county? Jones County. That's true. Okay. That's Trillium. You need to be on the phone with Trillium for whoever it is that you're serving, and get your veterans, get them a care manager. You need to let them know that they need access to care. This care manager will follow through and make sure that there are organizations that will be able to serve them. They'll either get transportation to get them to the closest organization, or they will even get a memorandum of agreement for an organization in that community to be able to get state funds to be able to pay for services that that particular individual may need if there aren't any other service providers in that area. So from the local part of what I do, go to Trillium in your area and then just let them know what it is that you're working with, and then they'll make sure that those individuals get access to care.
What I would also like to add is that regardless of what county somebody is in, if they're looking for something that we offer to Veterans Life Center, we'll even go pick them up and bring them to our campus. But you're really talking about advocacy. And the key to advocacy is being able to deliver a clear message, which I call the pain points of your community, to the right people. In this case, it's already been identified that Trillium would probably be a good start. But the other part of that is there's legislators, there's city council, if you have a city council, or whatever you have, the shot callers in your community. They have to buy into the pain points, because if they don't buy in, they won't support it. Because there's, especially in a rural community, there's so many competing needs that it is so easy to overlook the unseen, or to overlook the seen in your face, but they're like, nah, we don't want to deal with that because it's not really important. It's not the, as we like to say, what gets brought to the attention of people. It has to be sexy, so to speak. It has to be shiny. And what we deal with is not. But through identifying the pain points, and a lot of times people who are in positions of power, they can relate to that, because none of us in this room are immune to behavioral health, which includes substance use addiction, trauma, all sorts of things. You get that right person as your champion, things start to happen.
Please.
I'm gonna do you one better. I'm gonna give you my card when this panel is over. Contact me and I'll set you up with some people that you can talk about what it takes to stand up a program.
Now we're talking. Fixing problems. Boots on the ground solutions. Any other questions out there? Any other hands?
Yeah, I'm going to tell a quick story about the importance of veteran peer support. A few years ago, the VBA regional office, Mark Belos' team, put together VA Benefits Live in Charlotte. And my organization, Veterans Bridge Home, we were working with a veteran, and I can't even begin to go into the details of sensitivity of the subject when it comes to military sexual trauma and domestic violence and things like that. And the question was much harder than, can you get to Charlotte? What the peer support was needed was, this person had been so traumatized that without veteran peer support, this person couldn't even park their car and get out of the car and walk in to get services. That is how critical it is. That stuff is crippling. Depression is crippling. And people go, all that veteran needs to do is fill out that form. All they need to do is go to that website. What is up with this veteran? That's how important it is to have that veteran peer support specialist, because it's just as much as the life coach sometimes to say, hey, you know what? I'll come over Saturday and I help you go through that website. I'll help you navigate that. Or most importantly, I'll go with you to your appointments. That is true peer support and battle buddies.
Martin.
I think that the untold story about peer support is, or say that the darker side of peer support is, not everybody understands it or respects it. When we talk in the clinical world, there truly is a pecking order, and the pecking order starts with the letters after your name. Yes. And so if we have someone who has lived experience, depending on that agency, it may be their belief and their hiring practice of, no, we don't want to spend the money for that. But what has been mentioned is the value of peer support. A peer support specialist that is not only trained, but is also supported by an agency, can really go where, regardless of the letters after your name, you can't go. And so the other issue with a peer support specialist is pay. We can't neglect that. There ain't a lot of money in peer support, especially if you're living in Raleigh and you go want to get a loan and you're like, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a peer support specialist. That's going to be a short interview, folks, because of the fact you're not making a lot of money doing it. So there's many opportunities, I prefer to call it, that we need to address when it comes to peer support. One is the respect, one is the important, second is the importance, third is the training, but the other part of that is just the idea of some way integrating them more into the process, because they do have value, they do a lot of work, and they also provide a wealth of information back to the clinical team, to the people with the letters after their name.
What he said. You know, before we wrap, I think I'd like to swing back to, I have a question, and it relates to my father-in-law, who is a veteran and proud service, great stories, great service to his country, proud of his service. I don't think he registered with the VA. I don't. He never talks about it. I don't think that he has ever asked for really anything other than the very basic benefits that one would get. How do you talk to somebody to say you really ought to look at all the things? You can have all these things, but this is a man that just has never really thought to take advantage of those things.
It's a question of pride. A lot of times for people who wear the uniform, they don't want things given to them. And so the conversation really could be, you've earned this. Nobody's giving you anything. If you wore the uniform, there's a good chance you walked away with not necessarily visible wounds, but more than likely invisible wounds. And as a result of that, there should be not just the compensation, but also the treatment that is available based on what you walked away with and you're living with each and every day. But there are a lot of veterans, in particular older veterans, that are very, very prideful, that will say, nah, I'll leave that for other people. I remember when I retired from the Air Force, a veteran services officer approached me during my TAP briefing, and he was like, hey, Martin, have you registered for VA disability? And I looked at him, I'm like, I'm in the best shape of my life. Life is good. I'm going to prove there's life after this Air Force. Leave me alone. And he said, humor me. Bring your medical record. And I'm like, yeah, right. I brought it. He said, I'm going to put yellow stickies next to the pages in your medical records that I think we might want to file for. And so I'm like, whatever. I showed up. He had a few. I was concerned. But him being able to challenge me at that moment in time has really helped me in terms of getting the help and the support that I've needed over the years. And unfortunately, my rating has continued to rise. Because once again, there are invisible wounds that a lot of vets live with. And pride is a big one in terms of the fact of, no, I don't want to do that. It is not a handout. So it's a matter of reshaping the conversation and the understanding regarding someone going to the VA or applying for at least the VA benefits that they're entitled to.
And then I would say, as a therapist, is that important to you or is that important for him? So a lot of times we put our expectations on others because we learn something or we know of something and we think that they should do something different. If people are doing well with where they are, and it may not be where you want them to be, but they're doing well and they're okay with that, it's okay for you to be okay with that as well. So you can just, all I would say is just present the information. It's there. He may not, it might be in a position where he's just grateful where he doesn't have to access the care. I'm grateful when I don't have to go to my doctor. Don't push me to keep going because I'm good, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to say, just have a little bit more grace for that and make sure that you're not pushing off your expectations on him so you don't be the one disappointed in the end.
We have a question in the back, sir. Yes, sir. Gordon.
One of the things that I've found over time has worked really well too is every time you tell somebody they apply for benefits, even if they don't get it, maybe they get a 0%, they add numbers to this state for more money to come for their battle buddies and everybody else to get in the pool. The more people on the logs that are signed up, the more they can justify sending to us. So don't do it for you if you don't want to, but do it for them. It's the same for the Social Security disability. You get 100%, go down to Social Security. I don't care how comfortable you are with that VA check. You're adding money into the pot for every other veteran that's in this area.
Thank you very much. We have another comment to the side. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes. Through the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, we have what's called the hidden helpers, which are our littles that have grown up with or somehow connected to a wounded veteran. We have a online training that gives free CEUs for those who need that. It's, I think, 2 or 3 hours worth, as well as you can use that program as well to go to schools with it and have the teachers and the staff there utilize that training, because it helps them understand from the child's perspective, because we do have some children that are in the training videos on what they're going through, and then it gives the clinical side on how do you help support that child. I have a 26-year-old daughter who at 25 had her mental breakdown because she had been with her dad since 6 years of age, seeing that wounded veteran life, and we want to try to slow that down, and she has had suicide ideations as well. And so having that support going around through all of us, we're not silos, we are definitely a village. Elizabeth Dole Foundation, for those of you who don't know, we are a nationwide organization, and we support our hidden helpers and our hidden heroes who are veteran and military caregivers. And as Paul stated, it doesn't matter if you're related, and it doesn't matter how many hours you may provide care. If you are there supporting a veteran, you are a caregiver, and we appreciate every one of you.
That's awesome. All right, thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us. I think that'll do it. I don't see any more hands spread around. Yes, ma'am.
So I heard you speaking earlier about women veterans, which I very much appreciate you bringing up. It also had me thinking about how we're reaching our other minority group veterans. The amount of veterans that we have that are currently incarcerated, the amount of veterans that are people of color that may not feel comfortable coming to maybe systemically white-facing places, or our LGBT veterans and their family members that right now particularly may feel hesitant to come forward to seek services. I wonder if you guys have any advice or suggestions on how we can reach those more minority groups.
Sure. When we talk about people that are incarcerated, we have a person in the room here that is an expert in reaching both behind the walls and once the individual is back into the community. And I'm sure he's in there. Would you mind standing up there, Lucas, just so everybody can see you? Lucas has the ability to pretty much talk to anybody, especially someone coming from a marginalized community, or be it from someone that's been in and out of the walls. But it's a matter of, to answer your question, is finding the right advocates that can speak their language. Because it's not so much the issue of color, because there are people that are my color, because I wear suits, they don't trust me. They don't want to talk to me. And that's just the reality, because it's my presentation. They find it as something that they just don't feel comfortable with, and it probably goes back to trauma. So it's just a matter of finding people that can speak their language. And like I said, we have an expert in the room, Lucas. He's definitely a go-to person, and he works for the VA as well.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you all for being on stage and answering such great questions and just being a wealth of information for us. And I want to thank the Governor's Institute of Court for hosting this, and thank you for coming. You are the front lines. Right.
Thanks again to everyone who took part in that great discussion at the North Carolina SMVF Network Summit in Raleigh. We're grateful for your insights and your commitment to supporting our military community. Be sure to follow this podcast wherever you listen so you never miss an episode. You can stay connected with us at governorsinstitute.org or on social media. Just search at GOVINST. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.